I called Mama. She was so happy she cried. She wants you to have her wedding gown. It's white lace.
Yeah, that's good. I can't get married in your mother's dress.
You are wonderful.
Thank you. I've worked hard to become so. I admit it, you are better than I am. Then why are you smiling?
Because I know something you don't know.
What is that?
I am not offended. Well, sir, you were a cowardly son of a bitch. You just shot an unarmed man.
Well, he should have armed himself. He's gonna decorate his saloon with my friend.
Don't we all feel like that some days? I don't know.
That's like you'd see that on Facebook with the word, Monday feels like.
Right.
The tall man sucking you into a closet of doom.
Exactly.
Hi, I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs. Well, we had a week off.
Yes.
And so we've got about a dozen things to talk about. And that was even you're generously cutting down a few of the things that we're going to put off till next week.
So should we get to it?
Most likely. And I believe you're up.
I'm up.
Speaking of Europe, my son was in Paris.
Oh, really?
Ha, sorry. Moving on.
I've been up since about 7:15 this morning. Can you tell? So, first up is a film that I had never heard of until I saw it on the listings, and I went to see it this weekend. Who are you going to call when it's time to deal out swift justice toward a person who is really doing unjustifiable things? He who may or not have been a doctor at one point in his life, well, my friend and sometimes personal attorney and physical trainer, you want to call the Bad Samaritan. So I went into this one blind.
Right.
Which to me...
And which makes it hard to watch movies.
Well, once,
when you're blind,
once I regained my power of vision, I was like, hey, it's David Tennant. I went in blind, which is how I prefer to see movies. Now, the average person probably wants to know what it is they're seeing.
Well, we see everything pretty much. So.
We see everything, and we have MoviePass, so it softens the blow of things that are less than perfect. So going in, knew nothing about it, so it unfolded as every story should. Every surprise to me was a surprise. All I knew is that David Tennant, former Doctor Who, was in it and that he was probably the bad guy. So the basic scenario for those who didn't see that trailer or couldn't figure it out is that a thief breaks into a guy's house and finds that the guy is a really bad guy. So does he do something that will incriminate the thief in order to maybe save somebody's life? Or does he let the bad guy continue being a bad guy? And it ultimately becomes a cat and mouse between the thief trying to make the bad guy...
And which one's Tennant, the thief or the bad guy?
Tennant is the bad guy.
Okay.
Oops, gave it away. But from the second you see him in the movie, he's not a nice guy, then he's very not a nice guy. So it's a cat and mouse between, will our evil bad guy get caught by the police before he winds up, taking out the person who knows his secret? Directed by Dean Devlin, who has had a hand in a lot of big-budget action movies over the years. I think Independence Day is probably the most high-profile, but I think Day After Tomorrow might have been another one. I'm not a fan of that kind of movie. This is nothing like all the other movies he makes. This is a cat-and-mouse thriller. Maybe you'd call it a horror movie because there are some horrific elements to it. It's psychological. It's, for the most part, reality-based. This guy is not, dropping out of trees and metabolizing? No. He's not showing up everywhere at the right moment and all that stuff. So I thought it was interesting. We were talking off air while the trailer was playing. Reminded me of Don't Breathe.
Right, that's what it looked like.
Which was from a year or so ago, which was about people who think it's going to be easy robbing a blind guy in his house, and then they find out, oh, this blind guy has some skills, and he uses the blindness to his advantage. I thought this was okay. I didn't think it was great. At times it was borderline cheesy. Some of the music was a little over the top at times. But if you go with it as what was for me a throwaway matinee, it worked pretty well. And you're not 100% sure that everybody is going to make it to the end of this movie when you're watching it. So it really is like, maybe the bad guy will get away with it. It really, I'm not going to say, but it kind of had that feeling. As you may know if you watch this fine program, as you well know, I have a beef with British actors playing American, mostly because I can hear the accent is not perfect and it annoys me. Tennant pretty much nails it in this. He's
Okay.
a very good actor. So there were all the things that bugged me about it didn't. So I was like, wow, his voice sounds so different when it's not, British or Irish or wherever he's from originally. I would not say this is for those with a weak sensibility. There is some gruesome stuff here and there and just a gruesome tone overall. Pretty harsh, not for kids. But if you're looking for a good thriller, I thought Bad Samaritan was not bad.
Okay. Well, it looked like it had a little bit of money behind it, so decent production value, but probably not as much money as the next movie that we'll discuss. Have you heard of any of these people, Iron Man or Captain America or the Black Panther, anybody like that? If you haven't, you'll have the opportunity for 2.5 hours to see everybody come together and stop a pretty evil guy who wants to take over the universe and get rid of half of us. You get to decide right now which one. Would it be Mark or me? And so all of them are going to get together. Thanos is coming, and they're all going to fight an infinity war.
Hot dogs the way you like them.
So if our audio was up just now, we
Right,
just gave
exactly.
away the ending to
Whoops.
the movie.
A lot of surprises at the end, I would say.
So you saw this, well, we both saw this.
I waited, I was going to go opening night, which was a Thursday. Again, as I kind of mentioned, so here's the plant and payoff for the show. My son was with his high school group in Europe, and so he was mad at me, but I was going to go Thursday night because he didn't get back until Saturday. But then as I was walking out, getting ready to go see it, my wife was making dinner, and that's not the time to do it. So I waited, and I saw it the next day. Big, huge crowd, pretty well packed. I found the first hour to be a little bit, believe it or not, kind of slow and boring. There's lots of battles and things like that, but it's essentially Thanos, who is our evil supervillain, has to get these 6 magical stones. One powers the Eye of Agamotto from Doctor Strange, and one is in Vision's head. So he's got to go around and get all these things. And for me, the first hour was kind of like whoever had the stone said, "Oh, I'm not going to give it to you." And then Thanos would torture somebody, and the person with the stone would say, "No, it's still not going to." "Oh, okay." And it was just that after that after that. So an hour of that I thought was pretty boring. I really thought this picked up, and surprisingly, because in my opinion, few movies do this, the last hour and a half was much better and really saved it. I think I found myself occasionally wondering, well, wait a minute, what about, you haven't picked up the story of Captain America for a while. Because this is one of the things with, if you're looking at, the Justice League movies or the Avengers movies, you can't spend 80% of your time with any character. You got to do a little bit with everybody. So I thought they did a pretty good job with that. Overall, big surprises at the end. A lot of heroes die, which I was gasping. Oh my God, really? So ultimately, I guess $600 million worth of people in the first 3 days agree with us globally. I guess 250 million domestically. But it's a huge hit, and I thought it was really kind of worth the wait. There was, just to interject, only one with Marvel, as you know. You sit through the credits. And what they've been doing is they sit through the initial credits with all the actors and everything, and then there's a little funny clip, and then you sit through all of the credits, and there's another one. There was only one, and you had to sit through the whole thing, and I didn't really think it was worth it.
It was funny to me because I was there opening night. Happenstance, I was on the road, and I saw it somewhere. It was across the street from where I was staying, and it was a big full theater for the most part. There's a guy dressed pretty accurately as Captain America, even with the beard. People were taking pictures with him. And when the things that are shocking happened at the end, people were gasping and going, "No!"
Right.
And as the credits rolled and there wasn't a mid-credits scene, people were getting verbal about it. They're like, "What?
Right.
Come on, really?" And I'm sitting there going, I hope there isn't anything in these credits.
That
I
would
hope
have been
there isn't
great.
a tag, because the way this film ends, it's almost like Apocalypse Now. The original intent for Apocalypse Now from Coppola was that the movie would end and the lights would come up and you would have to go out and deal with it. And no credits to unwind, no music. It's just, it's over. Guess what? Go deal with it. I wish Marvel had the guts to do that with this movie.
That would have been great.
I also wish Marvel had the guts to just not make another superhero movie for 5 years. To make everybody go, seriously? And then really shock everybody, because...
What, you think all these superheroes who die are going to come back?
Well, that's the thing. We're not giving anything away, I hope.
Right,
It's
come
really
on.
a good movie, even if you know that's going in. I watched all that, and I'm like, wow, this is really ballsy and impactful, but I know this is all going to get undone in the next movie.
Right.
So it doesn't impact me.
And you know pretty much how
now,
it's going to get
I've
undone.
heard tales of little kids leaving the movie crying, which I think is great. In a way,
we all
not
enjoy
little
that.
kids crying so much as kids should see things that screw them up when they're a kid, because we all grow up and we have these fond memories of, oh man, that movie messed me up. If kids are shielded from that, they're just going to be like, oh, I watched that same disc 1,000 times, and boy, let's go watch it again. Anyway, I thought this was quite good. I like the Avengers movies, all the Marvel movies for the most part. The first couple of Thors, not as much, but this did a great job, I think, of giving every character a continuation of their story, an arc, and really good, memorable moments. And when you're juggling, I mean, some of the Avengers movies themselves don't do it that well.
I wasn't
you're
crazy
adding
about
in,
Ultron, right?
You're adding in all these other characters. You're adding the Guardians of the Galaxy in there. You're adding people who aren't always in the Avengers movies. And every time you're with them, it feels like it's their movie. Like the Guardians, I've heard somebody say this was a better Guardians sequel than the second Guardians
that's a good
movie.
point. It felt like each of their kinds of stories.
They didn't feel like guest stars in somebody else's movie in this one. I would say that if anybody was given short shrift, it was probably Black Widow in this. She seems like she's barely in it. And the little action moments she had were pretty brief and not terribly well shot. I thought the action was pretty good overall in this one, which these movies don't always succeed with. It was very funny at times. It was very dramatic at times. I don't know how much of an impact this film would have if you haven't seen most of the rest of the Marvel movies.
By impact, you mean just catching up on the stories, or
knowing
that
what the hell's going on.
you need to know? Okay,
like who these, like Scarlet Witch, and I don't even remember his name. Vision, the Vision, whatever. I mean, I saw whatever movie they were in once, and I was thinking, okay, who are they? Okay, what was their deal again?
But even if you just pick it up right now, it's like, oh, okay, they're a couple. Okay.
I guess you get that. So if you've watched all of these movies, and there's a lot of talk of the brilliance of Marvel of taking 10 years to weave this massive story together, and I'm thinking, did they really, from like day one, did they really think it was going to wind up here, or partway through did they decide to make them all coalesce? Because when you watch this, it is brilliant, because it reaches back to the beginning of every one of these franchises we're talking about, and that's going back a decade or so with, I think it's a lot of what the fans call retconning. I think they figured out ways to tie it all together. But there were characters that showed up in this that I never thought I would see again. Not like I was shedding a tear about that, but I was just like, oh, wow, yeah, that's pretty cool. So I thought this was a heck of a lot of fun. I saw it 2D opening night, worked fine for me. I saw moments where I felt like 3D probably would have worked pretty well. I saw a lot of moments where I thought like 3D wouldn't have made any difference at all. So there's that. But at any rate, people who are going to see this movie are going to see it, regardless of what we have to say about it, I'm sure, and they probably have already seen it.
They have that kind of emphasis.
But those are our thoughts.
Yeah, there you go.
Up next, do you want to do the next one? I didn't see.
Sure. What's up on next?
I don't even know what it's about.
Well, it was not a great time for a major city in California. I was actually there, so I could discuss what my personal interest in it. But Daniel Craig and Halle Berry kind of highlight the unfortunate story of a man who was brutalized by Los Angeles police. And the resultant, shall we say, to really downplay it, hoopla that occurred in the Los Angeles riots. You have to deal with a lot of kings.
To equal the crisp, delicious flavor of hot popcorn that's bathed in real melted butter.
So this one isn't going to get wide release. Odds are you're either going to have to seek this out or wait for it to come out on video, and I think it'd be just as effective on video. This isn't, something like Bad Samaritan. I think also, wait for video. It might even be a little bit more interesting because this is it's not a small story certainly, but it's kind of compact and certainly very intense. But it doesn't need the grandeur that a huge movie theater would necessitate. Craig and Barry really lead this. You'd mentioned off air Craig's American accent. Yeah, not the greatest. But I love Halle Berry. She's clearly strong enough to take on, and she has been for years, as an actress, take on, for want of a better term, more important stories than having to be an X-Men all the time or something like that. But this is an interesting look at the effects of the Rodney King incident and the LA riots that occurred there. But it doesn't focus specifically on King himself. It's we follow other stories and how it both served to unify and separate blacks and whites in Los Angeles at the time. So if you're interested in that, it's certainly very gripping. A lot of violence, so for little kids, I don't think they're going to be interested in it,
not, yeah.
but I think it's inappropriate for that. Some language, I don't recall any nudity or anything like that, but I thought Kings was really very well done and a very interesting film.
It sounds very interesting. It's one of several films. We were talking about one off air that neither of us can remember exactly what it is. But
right.
There are a few films like this where they take place against the backdrop of social unrest and upheaval, and how it's a microcosm of that. Well, how does one family deal with that? So this sounds interesting. I will probably check it out if I get the chance. Speaking of checking out, we are now checking out of the discussion of theatrical films for this week. Unless we have time at the end, I'll talk about one other thing. We thank our friends at the Latches Theater in Brattleboro, Vermont, for sponsoring this program. And now we move on to home video, in that which is available on the platform, format, service, or antenna of your choice. First up, an animated film based on a series of books that stretch way, way back to the times of our forebears. What are you going to do? Who are you going to call? Who are you going to eradicate from your garden when little woodland creatures talk and wear pants or vests, and they are ringleaded by Peter Rabbit?
Tender too. So make Sunbeam bread your favorite choice.
So based on the Beatrix Potter books, that I'm too literarily ignorant to know exactly when they were written, but I remember them when I was a kid, and they were, much like Paddington, which we may or may not be talking about before the show's over, these were books that were a little too genteel and classy looking for me as a kid.
Oh, really? I love the Peter Rabbit
Based
stuff.
on the illustrations and what I knew of them, I was never interested. So when the movie came out, I thought it was a very odd adaptation because it doesn't look and feel like that.
Right.
A lot of respect for this film because it does respect the source material, and there are times where Peter is talking about his parents, and the flashback is animated versions of those old drawings. And you see illustrations. I believe her name was Bee or Trix or something like that, the woman who lives next door who basically is telling his story. So they do work that in, and that's nice. I thought this was better than I expected it would be. I was kind of dreading it because I thought it was going to be sassy animals and dung jokes and all that, which it is, but it was not much of that.
Right.
Peter is, a renegade rapscallion rascal, Giza.
Wascally Wabbit?
Exactly, who causes a lot of trouble and learns the error of his ways with all his woodland friends. Animation is really well done. The English-American actors are funny and likable overall. And I thought this was a good time. I think kids will like it. There's some stuff in there that apparently is for grown-ups, which I thought was kind of lame. There's like a unnecessary, like a dung reference and a drug reference that I didn't think added anything to it. But otherwise, it was a pleasant matinee for me.
I'll agree. What I was ultimately most surprised by was the quality of the effects. The CG on Peter and all of his little buddies was truly amazing. And you're right, I love the flashbacks, the way the animation worked with that. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by Peter Rabbit.
And it's like he had like a dozen mighty animals.
All sorts of them helping him out. And in case you can't get enough of your friendly neighborhood thunder god, you can see the actor once again. But here he is saving people. He's always saving people. As true to life and true story about a group of soldiers in Afghanistan who are just starting our push into there. And they have to hop on some horses and save some people. Going up against the entire Afghan army and all of these people. You can only do it if you're 12 strong.
You can reach it quickly, comfortably, and with utmost economy.
So nothing terribly new about this, but good action. Ultimately, it's kind of like a what you see is what you get. Not to give it the short shrift or anything like that, but Hemsworth is fine. I'm growing. He's no great actor, but I'm growing to respect and like him in pretty much anything he's in because he does what he can with it. He's certainly a strong presence, and so I think he's becoming one of those actors that I'll actually go see a movie just because he's in it. He was certainly strong in this one. No pun intended. But the war scenes was interesting. They don't play up. Well, they just go at it and they don't play up in the film. But the fact that it's a true story made it kind of interesting to know that soldiers out there were actually doing this. So overall, I thought 12 strong. If you're interested in it, it's not gratuitously violent. You don't see blood and arms and limbs and stuff.
It's not
lying.
what was that Clint Eastwood?
I was just trying to think of what that was. Boy, I'm getting old. If he's
The Mel Gibson movie, something Ridge or whatever. That was a hard war movie.
That was stunning, and so it's nothing like that. You see lots of explosions and things like that. And not to beat up my wife, but horses do get injured, and so she's always concerned about that. So if you're worried about that, be careful. But no, I thought 12 Strong was pretty good.
Good double feature with Warhorse, perhaps?
There you go, maybe.
Speaking of repeating rifles, here we have a film based on a true story about the woman who was the heir to the fortune of the repeating rifle that helped win the West and blaze a trail toward the West Coast. Here we have the tale of what happens when she builds a house where the hammers must never stop and the ghosts continue to walk the halls of the mystery house owned by Winchester.
Jane, listen, help me out, will you? Harold hates my coffee. What kind do you use?
So I actually went to the Winchester Mystery House.
Yes, I've been there.
In San Jose, California. It is apparently the #2 tourist attraction in the state of California.
I didn't know that, really.
A state which has many.
Yep.
It's funny, it reminds me of the old Tex Avery cartoon about the old Western, or it was either a caveman or I guess it was an old Western jail where they put a guy in jail, and then at the end of the cartoon, in the Old West, the city has grown up around the jail, but the jail is still there untouched.
Oh, right, okay.
That's what the Mystery House is like. On the grounds of the Mystery House, you would swear it's the 1800s,
right.
But on the other side it's all parking lots and skyscrapers and movie theaters and stuff. I did not see this film, but I've been fascinated about this story ever since there was a Saga of the Swamp Thing comic book storyline in the 80s. I read it as a kid, which I thought was fascinating and creepy, and that's what let me know that this thing even existed.
Okay.
It's a very cool place to tour. It is allegedly very haunted. And tell me about the film.
It's very atmospheric. Obviously, Helen Mirren. I love Helen Mirren. I'll go see anything she's in. So that immediately attracted me to this. I was disappointed in its kind of. There are jump out at you moments and things like that, but it's really pretty. They just try too hard, I think, to startle you or to scare you. There's very little paranormal about it. You know, they talk about the ghosts and everything like that, but it's guys trying to scare her and ghosts and are there ghosts or not. So I think this is a good video. Again, I usually try to. Because it's such a hassle to, and I realize this, but to get out and go to the theaters, and if you don't have MoviePass, not that we're always pushing MoviePass, but you know it can get pretty darn expensive to go to a movie. So I try to differentiate between this is something you got to see in a theater. You'll enjoy it on video when it comes back out, or maybe you wait for video. And this is one that I think is a good video if you like Helen Mirren, if you like atmospheric horror stories. But ultimately, Winchester is no great shakes.
But was there a room in the house for relaxation where people who break the law hang out?
No, not really. But if you needed something like that, it was a good try. It was a good try. Gerard Butler is okay. I'll stay with you. Usually they go over here. Gerard Butler leads a group of law enforcement officers who are out to stop super cunning. You've never met criminals that are this great, and they're going to try to knock over for quite a lot, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. A Federal Reserve Bank. How are you going to stop them? Because they all congregate, as he alluded to, in a den of thieves.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, blast off!
So this one, I think this was, I'm sure this was released in theaters. I don't recall seeing it in the theater. So, and I like Gerard Butler. As an action hero, he's okay. And this isn't, no insult to our law enforcement folks who are out there, but you don't have to be a rocket scientist, as he was more recently in whatever there was. Geostorm, right? Really, I'm going to believe Gerard Butler's a rocket scientist.
Nope.
But he heads this FBI-like team, and so I guess I can buy that. I'm saying basically I don't buy that Butler has a lot to work with upstairs.
You don't see him as the smartest guy in the room,
right? He's a nice guy. I love his stuff. He's in some of the things that I really like. But so I went into this thinking, really, I didn't know if he was the good guy or one of the bad guys. But either way, I was like thinking, really, Gerard Butler? So anyway, enough bashing of Gerard Butler. Sorry, Gerard, because I like his stuff. This is, and not being negative, run-of-the-mill. We've seen it a zillion times. So if you like it, it's okay. It spends an awful lot of time building up to this heist that I didn't think we needed, so it kind of drags a little while. We've seen it a zillion times. Cops and the bad guys, they come into a confrontation, and it's the cat and mouse of who can figure out what's going on first. I was ultimately pretty disappointed in Den of Thieves. Didn't think it was all that clever. Didn't think performances were all that great. You've got 50 Cent, who never does much for me at all.
Not an actor so much?
Not an actor, really. You can like his music. But so anyway, Den of Thieves, yeah.
Speaking of enemy combatants and
Yes.
battles of wills,
Okay.
not journals of wills, but battles of wills, we have a critically acclaimed title that played for quite a while here locally. Christian Bale stars as a cavalryman in the Old West who must put aside his prejudices and hatreds and experiences to accompany some Native Americans to their homeland so the old guy can die where he came from in a film entitled Hostiles.
Any place to eat?
Are you getting hungry?
I'm starved.
So, this was a film, as I said, played locally for quite a while.
Right.
And it was one of those films where it's like, it's nice to have a movie for grown-ups every once in a while. So you have Bale, who is a, in the terminology of the day, Injun-hating cavalryman.
Right.
And he's got to escort these people to their homeland. He's like, I'll do it, but I won't like it. So
Well, he even starts off, he doesn't want to do it.
he didn't. He refuses to do it until he's told, "You're kind of going to do this."
Right.
So they're going off across the West, and there is a band of murderous, a murderous tribe that's out there, and they have to fend. You know, they have to protect the interests to get them there, and ultimately you're going to have to work together, or you're pretty much all going to be killed. How about that? So it's about that. It's about learning from somebody who's different than you. It's about putting your differences aside to get a common goal accomplished. And maybe you find mutual respect. Maybe you don't. I'm not going to give it away. I will say it was very well shot. It's the rugged Western wilderness. Very good cast with Rosamund Pike and Christian Bale and everybody else. Those are the two names people probably recognize.
Right.
And it is not a non-violent film.
Oh, yeah.
It is a brutal and graphic film at times. It does not spare any details of what happens when hatchet meets face or bullet meets bone or whatever. So I thought Hostiles was good. I didn't think it was great, but it held my interest the whole time. I liked the little message it was weaving in there, a timely message in these trying times.
Yes.
And the performances were really good. And it's an era we don't see. I mean, I wouldn't really call it a Western per se, but we don't see a lot of movies set in this period of time these days. So if you like Westerns or you like the West as it was or with wide open spaces, it's a pretty good one to watch. Probably served you better on the big screen than the small screen, but the drama still comes across on the small screen, and the gore is nice and close up, so you'll catch that on your phone or your TV or whatever.
Right. Yeah, pretty much what you said. Terrific vistas and everything like that. Three really strong performances. Unfortunately, I don't remember the Native American actor's name. But Bale, I like. I got a little tired of his kind of somber, I'm so tough and I'm really...
Tucking through his mustache?
Right, exactly. Rosamund Pike is the one who stood out for me. I just thought she just stole the scene every time she's in it. She plays a woman whose entire family is just brutally slaughtered.
That's how you open a movie, by the way.
Sure was,
that
right,
movie,
yeah.
That opening
Boom.
gets your attention fast.
Right, and so she's just terrific. She steals the show every time she's in it. I liked her a lot. My real problem with this was, and I understand, I always say that there's intellectually understanding a point and emotionally getting the point. And for Bale to so hate this Indian tribe in particular, and for the chief also to have such great animosity against Bale as the representative of all things American, for them to eventually, what I felt was like, maybe a week? It took them, not even that, to travel, for them to get over, giving it away. But this is what's going to happen. I didn't buy it. I didn't believe it emotionally or intellectually. So unfortunately, I found for the want of a better term, the entire premise of Hostiles to be unbelievable for me. I respected a lot of it, and I think if you like any of them, particularly Pike, it's certainly worth watching. Didn't really sit all that terribly well.
Speaking of families being massacred.
It can be pretty awful when you have to go out and do some shopping and get something for your 100-year-old aunt makes it tough. But when you're in England, there's lots of places you can shop and buy some things. And if you're a little animated bear, it's easy to get some stuff for them. But what are you going to do when it gets swiped? Oh my gosh! Everybody has to go out and try to find this gift that was lost by this bear. Dad's going to go look, and Mom's going to go look, and everybody else. But it's also going to be sought for by Paddington, too.
Your favorite choice. Eat Sunbeam, the bread you need for energy.
This is our animated Beasties show, I guess.
It is.
the case.
I don't think the trailers for the Paddington movies do a great job in selling how good these are, at least to me. These trailers tend to play up the butt and the ear and the nose and orifices and stuff like that. These are so much better than that. I didn't expect anything from the first Paddington. I thought, again, these were based on these genteel books that I had no interest in as a kid. They're very funny. They're very smart. Great visual comedic set pieces and slapstick stuff. I want to say Hugh Jackman, but it's not. It's, boy, I'm losing my mind. Hugh Grant is in this film. He's very funny. And there's, watch through the credits, because there's something in the credits that could not have been cheap to do that they do, and you're like, wow, that's fantastic. You know they had to cut it out for time, but they didn't want to not use this. Brendan Gleeson is in it, and he's very funny. There's a whole sequence in prison that's very funny with Paddington. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Quite a counterpart for Sally Hawkins fans from Shape of Water. A good double feature. I would leave the kids out of Shape of Water. But I really like the Paddington movies. I tell everybody I know you really need to try these. And more I hear people seeing these and they're like, wow, you know, I didn't expect it was going to be like this. And I'm like, yeah, they're really good. So to cut myself short, I really like the Paddington films.
I wasn't crazy about the first one. I liked this one more. Strangely enough, and this is unfortunately a negative comment, the thing I dislike most about the Paddington movies is Paddington. I find him annoying. And it's just his approach and his attitude and everything like that. He reminds me of, I don't know, is it Stan Laurel or some kind of a bumbling oaf kind of a thing? Maybe that'd probably be more like Oliver Hardy. But I don't find that approach or that way of living for Paddington, this animated bear, appealing to me. So I liked everything else. I do think it's fine for the whole family, and I don't, even if you have the same feeling about Paddington as I do, I still think it's worth watching.
Speaking of ancient martial arts techniques,
yes, won't we?
Because Paddington is full of them. Up next, I've been waiting for this. Here's a review of a new film out on Blu-ray, new release out on Blu-ray from VCI, a Bruceploitation film. We'll get into that if we have time, what that means. A man is hunting down the secret finger book owned by the late Bruce Lee that teaches his finger fu style, and everybody is out to get the secret of Bruce's deadly fingers.
They've left their fields and barns. They're marching from the farms because kids don't drink enough milk.
Take that.
Okay, I love old fu films.
Yep,
this is from 1976. After Bruce Lee died, just as he was getting popular and was causing martial arts film to become popular worldwide, mostly his films, but everything else around him, the guy dies, and everybody's like, "Buh! our golden turkey just, dropped its last egg." And so people started making these films with guys that looked just like Bruce Lee, and film titles that sounded like Bruce Lee titles or sounded like sequels. And the guys' names were like Bruce L.I., Bruce L.E., Bruce. So they could kind of be pronounced like Bruce Lee. They looked enough like him. And sometimes you'd watch the movies, and there may or may not be anybody named Bruce. He might not even supposed to be Bruce. Bruce Lee's connection was very tenuous. So in this one, they're looking for this secret book that has the secrets to this certain style that he did. And it's funny, in the opening credits, it also lists Bruce Lee as in the cast. I guess there were some export versions of this film where they cut in scenes from other Bruce Lee movies when this guy's thinking about Bruce Lee. In this one, you just see a couple stills of a poster on the wall of Bruce Lee. So bottom line for this one, it's silly 70s kung fu. So you don't get bored waiting for the next martial arts scene to pop up. They're pretty much constant. You could watch this film with friends with the sound down low and have a conversation, and it's still entertaining because there's enough going on. The plot isn't much. It's, where's the kung fu book? Do you have it? Give it to me. Let's fight. Did you insult me? Let's fight. But the martial arts are well shot, and they're well choreographed. I mean, they're not Chan or Bruce Lee level, but they're good. And I would honestly say the martial arts are shot and executed better in this film than most modern action movies we talk about, because you can see what's going on. This disc has a whole bunch of additional martial arts trailers on it. I will say the transfer looks fantastic. I'm used to seeing these movies as pan and scan tapes of beat up prints. This looks gorgeous. there's a commentary that's really interesting that gets into the whole Bruceploitation era and genre, what that meant, the history of all the people who are in this movie, what various things mean, what the different edits of this movie were like. It's not condescending, it's just straight ahead, and it has fun with it, and it points out some of the weaknesses of the film. I really like this. I hope this is a harbinger of more films like this to come out on Blu-ray, because I love this stuff, and I know a lot of other people do, and we're sick of finding old Good Times home videotapes from the 80s in the LP mode to watch this kind of stuff. So this is out now, and it was a lot of fun. If I can mention one other thing very quickly.
Jump into it.
Tying into martial arts and all this, there's a new series on YouTube called Cobra Kai that just premiered this weekend. It is a sequel TV series to Karate Kid. It has William Zabka, who played Johnny, and it has Ralph Macchio, who was Daniel-san, and it's their lives now. And I was curious about this.
Is it monetized? How do they? Why are they doing
Basically, it's on YouTube Red, which is it's a $10 a month pay service.
Oh, okay.
But which I just did before we started recording, literally moments before we started recording. There's a 1 month free trial, so it's 13 half-hour episodes. I watched the first 2 and I thought it was outstanding. Like, the drama is really good. It's very well produced and shot. Again, the foo is better than what I just saw in the last couple Marvel movies. And the acting is good. Like, William Zabka is really good as this guy who was a punk bully in the 80s, and where is his life now so many years later. And the two enemies from the past come back together in their lives, and how do they interact. I thought it was outstanding. I'm really looking forward to watching the rest of these in the next couple days. Tangentially film related. And other than that, do you have any words of wisdom or additional supplemental information?
Not really, but what we'll do is we'll leave you today and see you next week. But stick around, because immediately after we say goodbye, there's a little something extra from your Avenger friends.
Ooh, a
Until
bonus feature.
then, next week.
I'm Mark.
And I'm Tom.
And we are
the Cinemaniacs.
Here's the story of a playboy genius who was gearing up to form some sort of crew.
One's a former Russian spy,
A god of thunder, one fought in World War II.
It's the story of a handsome Star-Lord, like the greatest to ever walk the earth by far. And a falcon,
and a magic doctor,
Wakanda forever.
So then one day all the heroes were assembled to fight a villain who packed much more than a punch. And this group was labeled the Avengers. That's the way we all became the Marvel Bunch. The Marvel Bunch. The Marvel Bunch. That's the way we became the Marvel Bunch.
Hello, brother.
Shut up.